In a world where social media often blurs the lines between reality and illusion, Sophia Bell and Michael Trent appeared to be the epitome of a modern love story. Sophia, with her undeniable charm and widespread influence, captivated the digital world. Her Instagram was a mosaic of perfect moments, each post more enchanting than the last. Together, they were more than just a couple. They were a phenomenon. Their story unfolded across countless feeds, each update sending waves of admiration and envy through their millions of followers. The public adoration was palpable, with fans declaring them a perfect match, each snapshot and video further cementing their status as relationship goals. But beneath the shimmering surface of glamorous selfies and heartfelt captions lay a reality far more complex and fragile than their followers could have ever guessed. As their wedding approached, the anticipation of their fans reached a crescendo, with everyone eager to witness what promised to be a breathtaking event. Yet, the fairy tale veneer was about to crack, revealing a storm of emotions and secrets that would transform their dream into a nightmare. Before we continue this gripping tale, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. Your support means the world to us and allows us to bring you more stories like this one. Subscribe now so you don't miss out on the unfolding drama and the powerful lessons it holds. Thank you for being part of our community. Now, let's dive back into the story. The evening was filled with joyous celebrations as the couple exchanged vows under a canopy of twinkling fairy lights, surrounded by family and friends. The air buzzed with excitement and love, each moment captured and shared in real time, echoing across social platforms where millions felt as though they were part of the festivities. However, as the final guests departed and the last pieces of confetti settled on the ornate flooring of their honeymoon suite, the atmosphere shifted. The room, bathed in the soft glow of candles, held the promise of newlywed bliss. But for Michael, it harbored a confession that he had kept shielded from everyone. With a heart burdened by his secret, Michael watched as Sophia twirled in her bridal gown, radiant and oblivious to the tumultuous thoughts racing through his mind. As the distance between them closed, his resolve wavered, the weight of his hidden truth growing heavier with each passing moment. "Sophia," Michael began, his voice barely above a whisper, "there's something about me you need to know. Something I should have told you long ago." The joy in Sophia's eyes dimmed with confusion as she sensed the seriousness of his tone. Michael paused, taking a deep breath before revealing his truth. "I am transgender." The words hung between them, stark and irrevocable. Sophia's reaction was one of stunned silence, her mind struggling to align this revelation with the man she thought she knew so intimately. The confession shattered the illusion of their perfect wedding night, planting seeds of doubt and betrayal in what was meant to be a sanctuary of their love. Michael's admission was not just a sharing of his deepest self, but also a test of their bond. A bond that was about to be tested under the most extreme pressures. The air in the honeymoon suite, once filled with the sweet scent of roses and the gentle flicker of candlelight, now felt heavy and tense. Sophia, still reeling from Michael's revelation, struggled to compose her thoughts. Her initial shock soon gave way to a torrent of emotions. Betrayal, confusion, and hurt dominated her heart. "You lied to me," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of rage and heartbreak. "All this time, you let me believe we shared everything, but you are hiding who you truly are." Michael, his own heart aching with fear and regret, tried to bridge the chasm of misunderstanding with words of explanation. "I didn't lie to deceive you, Sophia. I was scared you'd see me differently. Scared I'd lose you," he implored, his voice cracking under the strain of his emotions. But Sophia's feelings of deception overshadowed his pleas for empathy. "How could you expect me to accept this all at once? You should have trusted me enough to tell me before we made such profound promises to each other," she countered, her voice rising with every word as frustration and disbelief clouded her judgment. The room, once a symbol of their union, now served as a battleground for their conflicting truths. Their words, once filled with love and tenderness, now lashed out in pain and accusation. "How can I trust anything now? How do we move forward from this?" Sophia demanded, her stance rigid as she wrapped her arms around herself, as if to protect against further hurt. Michael reached out, hoping to calm the storm of her fury with a gentle touch, but she recoiled, stepping back as if his touch could no longer be trusted. "I need time, Michael. Time to think about what this means for us. For me." The chasm between them grew as the night wore on, their voices echoing off the walls, a stark reminder of the distance that had formed so quickly between them. Each plea for understanding, every attempt at reconciliation, seemed only to deepen their wounds, turning the dream of their perfect life together into a fragmented nightmare. The honeymoon suite, once an idyllic setting adorned with rose petals and the soft, warm glow of candlelight, had transformed into an arena of raw, unfiltered emotion. The night that was supposed to celebrate their love now underscored the deep fissures in their relationship. The champagne that had bubbled with joy was now forgotten, its festive fizz echoing the sour turn of events. Sophia paced back and forth, her movements sharp and erratic, mirroring the turmoil within her. Each step seemed to stomp out the remnants of their fairy tale, her mind racing with the implications of Michael's long-held secret. "You chose our wedding night to tell me this. What were you thinking?" she accused, her voice a crescendo of disbelief and anger. Michael, feeling cornered and desperate, tried to explain his timing, his words stumbling over each other. I thought once we were married we could face anything together. I hoped that our love would be strong enough to handle my truth," he replied, his voice strained with emotion. But Sophia's sense of betrayal was too profound, her trust too shaken. "Our vows, Michael, they mean something to me. You've made a mockery of them," she cried out, her voice echoing against the walls, laden with heartbreak and disillusionment. As the night wore on, the suite, so carefully chosen for its romantic allure, felt increasingly claustrophobic. The delicate scent of roses now seemed overpowering, suffocating, as if they too were closing in on her. Each flicker of the candles cast ominous shadows, turning their refuge into a cell of psychological torment. Their arguments spun in circles, with Michael pleading for understanding and Sophia grappling with feelings of deception and shock. Their words, once so full of promise and hope, now cut through the air, sharp and damaging. The gap between them widened, their connection fraying under the weight of hidden truths and shattered illusions. As dawn approached, the darkness of the night mirrored the dark turn in their relationship. What began as a whisper of doubts and fears had erupted into a storm of accusations and recriminations, leaving both to wonder if the damage could ever be undone. As the first light of dawn began to seep through the curtains, casting a pale glow over the once romantic setting, the tension in the room reached a breaking point. The verbal exchanges had left both Sophia and Michael emotionally exhausted and raw. The floor was littered with the remnants of their celebration turned sour, scattered rose petals and an overturned bottle of champagne, its contents seeping into the carpet. In a desperate attempt to salvage what remained of their relationship, Michael reached out to Sophia, his movements unsteady from fatigue and emotional strain. His hand accidentally brushed against a vase on the nightstand, sending it crashing to the floor. The sound of shattering glass sliced through the heavy silence, startling them both. Sophia, already on edge, instinctively stepped back, her eyes wide with shock and fear. Michael, horrified at the unintended chaos, tried to clear the shards, his hands trembling. In his haste, a jagged piece of glass sliced through his palm, drawing blood. The sight of it, bright and stark against the pale fragments, sent a shudder through him. "Sophia, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean," Michael began, his voice choked with panic. But in the confusion and frenzy, as he reached out to reassure her, another shard of glass was propelled forward. It happened in an instant, a blur of motion and emotion. The shard caught Sophia just as she moved towards him, her movements fueled by a mixture of anger and concern. The sharp edge pierced her, a stark contrast to the softness of the rose petals beneath her feet. Sophia gasped, her hands clutching at the sudden pain, her eyes meeting Michael's in a mix of confusion and disbelief. "Michael?" she whispered, her voice faltering, the realization of what had happened dawning on her. Michael, horror-struck, dropped to his knees, his hands shaking as he reached out to support her. "Sophia, please, hold on. I didn't mean this. I never meant to hurt you," he stammered, his words tumbling out in a torrent of shock and fear. As Sophia slumped to the ground, the severity of the situation unfolded with terrifying clarity. Michael's desperate calls for help echoed through the suite, a haunting soundtrack to the tragic end of what was supposed to be their happiest day. The paramedics arrived too late. Sophia's injuries were fatal, and she was pronounced dead at the scene, her bridal gown stained with blood, a grim reminder of the night's gruesome turn. Michael sat beside her, his body numb, his mind reeling from the swift and brutal shift from love to loss. The news of Sophia Bell's untimely death on her wedding night spread like wildfire, igniting a media frenzy and an outpouring of public emotion. Headlines screamed across the nation, each one more sensational than the last, painting a picture of a fairy tale turned horror story. Social media platforms were abuzz with hashtags and speculations as millions of Sophia's followers mourned the loss of their beloved influencer while grappling with the shocking circumstances surrounding her death. Michael Trent, once admired for his service as a police officer and beloved as the perfect partner to Sophia, found himself at the center of a storm of controversy. The revelation of his transgender identity, which came out in the wake of the tragedy, added layers of complexity to the public discourse. Debates raged over his decision to withhold this truth until after their marriage, with discussions about honesty, transparency, and the expectations placed on individuals living under the public eye. Opinions were deeply divided. Some sympathized with Michael, understanding the fear and pressure that might have led him to conceal his identity. They argued that societal stigma and the lack of acceptance for transgender people often force many into silence, fearing rejection and even violence. Others vehemently criticized him, focusing on the perceived betrayal of Sophia's trust and the tragic outcome as evidence of deceit. The media circus intensified as experts weighed in. Psychologists discussed the impact of hidden identities on relationships, while social media influencers debated the balance between public personas and private lives. Legal analysts speculated on the charges Michael might face, questioning whether the incident was a truly accidental tragedy or if there were elements of negligence or intent. The tragedy of Sophia and Michael quickly transcended their individual story, becoming a symbol of broader societal issues. The discourse expanded to include the responsibilities of those with a platform towards their audience, and the challenges faced by individuals navigating identity and acceptance in a highly publicized environment. As the days turned into weeks, the initial shock gave way to a sustained inquiry into what this meant for society's understanding of identity, love, and the often harsh glare of the public spotlight. The hashtag Justice for Sophia trended alongside the public standard to regulate the views of the society, drawing lines in the sand, their arguments reflecting the polarized views of a society struggling to reconcile traditional values with modern realities. As investigators sifted through the aftermath of Sophia Bell's tragic death, they uncovered a series of voice recordings and testimonies from friends and acquaintances that painted a more detailed picture of the couple's relationship dynamics. These recordings, some of which were heartbreakingly intimate, revealed the gradual build-up of tension and mismatched expectations that had marked Sophia and Michael's union. In one poignant voice memo, Sophia could be heard expressing her concerns about the future, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I love him so much, but sometimes I feel like he's holding something back," she confessed in a late-night recording meant for a close friend. "It's like there's a part of Michael that I can't reach, and it scares me." "What aren't he telling me?" Michael's recordings, on the other hand, captured his internal struggle with his identity. "I'm terrified of losing her," he admitted in a shaky voice just days before their wedding. "Telling her the truth about who I am might mean the end of everything we have. but how can I marry her without being completely honest? These intimate glimpses into their private lives were supplemented by interviews with those who knew them best. Friends described how the couple seemed increasingly tense as the wedding approached, noting that Michael appeared particularly anxious, a stark contrast to his usual composed demeanor. Colleagues from the police department recalled conversations in which Michael seemed preoccupied and distant, hinting at a deep-seated fear of rejection. These pieces of evidence suggested a complex web of emotions and secrets that had been simmering beneath the surface of what seemed like a perfect relationship to the outside world. The mismatch between Sophia's desire for complete transparency and Michael's fear of exposing his deepest truth had created a precarious balance that ultimately could not hold. The release of these recordings and testimonials shifted public perception yet again, adding depth to the understanding of the tragedy. It became clear that the incident was not just a sudden outburst of violence, but the result of a profound emotional conflict that had been building over time. This new layer of complexity provoked further discussion among the public and the media, raising questions about the challenges of communication and honesty in relationships, especially under the scrutiny of a public life. In the wake of Sophia Bell's tragic death, law enforcement officials intensified their investigation into Michael Trent, delving into every aspect of his life. The pursuit was not just to piece together the events of that fateful night, but also to understand the man at the center of this tragic tale. As detectives unraveled Michael's past, they revealed the journey of his transition, a profound and personal process that he had kept hidden from almost everyone, including Sophia. Investigators uncovered medical records, psychological evaluations, and personal journals that Michael had maintained throughout his transition. These documents painted a picture of a man grappling with his identity in a society that often showed little sympathy for those like him. Interviews with medical professionals who had assisted him and with members of the transgender community provided further insights into the challenges he faced. The media latched on to these revelations, with news outlets publishing in-depth profiles that explored the complexities of living as a transgender individual in a predominantly cisgender world. Talk shows and news segments debated the societal obligations of transgender people to disclose their identity, especially in intimate relationships, often without a full understanding of the emotional and physical risks involved. Simultaneously, some media narratives shifted to examine the broader societal context that shaped Michael's decision to withhold his truth from Sophia. They discussed the fear of rejection and the pressure to conform that many in the transgender community face. As more about Michael's past came to light, public opinion began to fragment even further. Some expressed sympathy, recognizing the immense pressure he faced, while others remained fixated on the perceived betrayal of Sophia. This division was reflected not just in social media debates, but also in everyday conversations, highlighting the polarized views on identity, privacy, and trust. The investigation's findings also prompted law enforcement to question whether societal attitudes towards transgender individuals had contributed to the tragedy. This aspect of the case prompted discussions among policymakers about the need for greater protections and understanding for the transgender community to prevent such tragedies in the future. The trial of Michael Trent became a media spectacle, drawing attention far beyond the local community to a national and even international audience. Courtrooms rarely see the kind of drama that unfolded, as Michael's story was dissected from every angle, his private struggles turned into public discourse. As the proceedings commenced, the courtroom was divided not just by the legal teams, but also by the contrasting perceptions of Michael. On one side, prosecutors painted him as a manipulative figure who had deceived Sophia, deliberately withholding his transgender identity until after their marriage. They argued that his actions constituted a betrayal deep enough to contribute to the tragic outcomes of their wedding night. On the other side, the defense portrayed Michael as a victim of overwhelming societal pressures and deep-seated fears of rejection that many transgender people face. His attorneys highlighted his lifelong struggle with his identity, the challenges of his transition, and the genuine love he had for Sophia. They argued that Michael's failure to disclose his transition was not out of deceit, but out of an incapacitating fear that unveiling his truth would cost him everything dear to him. Witnesses, including psychologists, social activists, and members of the transgender community, provided testimony that shed light on the psychological impacts of societal exclusion and the risks associated with coming out. They discussed the potential consequences of rejection and violence that transgender individuals often confront, which helped contextualize Michael's actions. The public and media reactions were intensely polarized. Outside the courthouse, groups gathered daily, some in support of Michael, holding signs that read, "Trans rights are human rights," and others demanding justice for Sophia, with placards that declared betrayal is not love. And inside the courtroom became a microcosm of the societal battlefields, dealing with issues of identity, privacy, and trust in relationships. The trial's proceedings were frequently interrupted by emotional outbursts from the gallery, reflecting the heated emotions that the case stirred in the public. The extensive media coverage that followed each day of the trial highlighted not just the details of the case, but also the broader implications it had for understanding identity and honesty within intimate relationships. Each session was analyzed, and each piece of testimony was scrutinized, reflecting the nation's divided views on a complex mix of legal, moral, and societal issues. As dust settled on the trial of Michael Trent, the case left an indelible mark on public consciousness, highlighting profound societal challenges and the often painful intersection of personal truths with public perceptions. The tragic story of Sophia and Michael raised crucial questions about acceptance, the complexities of identity, and the consequences of hidden truths within intimate relationships. This case, far from being a mere legal battle, had evolved into a pivotal moment that prompted society to reflect on several critical issues. What does it mean to truly know someone? Is full disclosure always necessary in love? Or are there parts of our identities that can remain private, even from those closest to us? How do societal norms and expectations influence our personal decisions? In what ways do societal pressures shape our actions and the honesty of our relationships? What are the limits of acceptance in relationships? How can individuals and society grow to become more accepting of complex identities and histories? Can a tragedy like this foster a broader understanding and acceptance of transgender individuals? What steps can be taken to ensure that fear and misunderstanding do not lead to such devastating outcomes? What role does the media play in shaping public opinion about complex personal issues? How can media coverage be balanced to provide empathy and understanding rather than sensationalism? As these questions linger in the minds of those touched by the story, they challenge us to think critically about our own beliefs and the evolving dynamics of modern relationships. The story of Sophia and Michael serves not only as a reminder of the fragility of trust and love, but also as a call to action for a deeper understanding and a more inclusive society. If you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. Your support is crucial as it helps us continue to bring you compelling stories filled with betrayal, deceit, and crime, just like the one you've heard today. Stay tuned for more deep dives into complex narratives that reveal the darker sides of human nature and the redemptive power of truth and resilience. Don't miss out on our upcoming episodes. Subscribe now and join us as we explore more intriguing and thought-provoking stories. Thank you for your support.